My name's Jordan Plant. Today I have with me my colleagues Jisha John, Irene Paul, and Elle Douglas, and today we'll be discussing the dilemma of the trailing spouse. Within our presentation, we'll be discussing what exactly a trailing spouse is, the solutions to this issue, the interventions, and the possible approaches to the issue. I will be starting with what exactly the trailing spouse is. So, in the first use of the word, it was used in the Wall Street Journal. The use of the word was deliberate, and the words specifically trailing spouse was intentional. It's of someone who's following their partner on a job, following behind them, and the implications of that kind of lifestyle. More commonly, it's used for international jobs, placements in expatriate assignments are specifically well known. Typically, these assignments would last between 3 and 5 years. However, a lot of companies are reducing that to closer to 1 year to about 6 months. Like the expat depression, trailing spouse syndrome is not an official diagnosis. It's just a term used to explain a specific issue that people have noticed within this type of living situation and working situation. The four main issues we will discuss are family disconnect, lack of anchorage for partners, gender associated expectations, and precarity of work. The purpose of international assignments is important to discuss because why are we sending these people to do international assignments if we know that there are potential issues that exist when we do this? And the two reasons are transfer of knowledge and skills and strategic control. So transfer of skills and knowledge is when the person is assigned to a host country, they're bringing that knowledge and skills that they have to the host country from their home country. And strategic control is sort of the opposite. They're going to the other country to learn more about their culture, their structure, their problem solving techniques, and then bringing that back to the home country. Issues associated with the trailing spouse syndrome, disconnect within the relationship. It can be a lack of communication. You have one spouse who has the benefit of a stable working environment. They're bringing their spouse with them into a situation where they would obviously feel more comfortable. So it can be difficult to keep that line of communication and make sure that you're communicating with your spouse. There can obviously be, resentment with people having to take breaks from their lives, their work lives, their family lives, and it can be difficult to restart that somewhere else. And it definitely depends on the length of time that they're spending in these different countries, whether they're creating a whole new life for themselves. 3 to 5 years is a very long time, or if they're taking a break from their lives for a year to 6 months, which is also a significant amount of time to follow their spouse to another country and continue their career. So that can lead to a disconnect within the relationship. The lack of anchorage, the spouse can have a difficult time finding that support that they need. Like I said, they're going to another country for their spouse's job. That may not include them having a job found by the time they go. So they may not have something concrete to fall back on in terms of work. Some jobs you really can't do in other countries. You may have to get recertified in different countries. So they can't bring all of those skills with them. If they're having to find new friendships because of time differences or difficulty visiting friends or family, if they're losing a community, that can be really hard to adjust to. Not being able to speak to family or see them in person as often as you're used to can be really difficult. Gender associated expectations. Typically, the trailing spouse referred to women following their spouses to different international jobs and taking care of the household, being the stay at home wife or the stay at home mom. And there are still those gender associated expectations that exist where the woman is expected to take care of the household, which is kind of changing now because women are more accepted in the workplace. We're a higher percentage of the workplace now. So now we're seeing where it's women being offered these international jobs and it's the man in the relationship that are trailing. And then it also doesn't really discuss the gender associated expectations for couples that are not heterosexual couples coming in, but it's all affected by this sort of ideology that it's the woman following the man in the relationship. Precarity of work, it can be very difficult for people to find work, as I said, if you have specific criteria that you have to meet in different countries for different jobs. So, if you're a doctor in one country, your credentials may not transfer over to another country. So, if you're following your spouse, you may not be able to find the same level of work that you're used to. And you can often find there are people having to take breaks in their careers and their job paths. And that can be really disheartening for those people. And now I'll be passing it over to Elle, who will be discussing the potential solutions.
Thank you, Jordan. So research shows that the accompanying spouse or family is key to expatriation. And the primary reason for premature departure from expatriation is insufficient organizational support. So the accompanying family needs three types of support. So practical support, professional support, and social support. Practical support helps families adjust to their new environment. Professional support helps with the dual career issues, and social support alleviates the marital and familial stress. So practical support can be thought of as functional or logistical help. These are things like learning languages, tax documents, and other logistics that are necessary for expatriation. While this is the most common type of support that organizations do give their expatriates, it's often insufficient in its consistency in being applied. Um, in order for this to be sufficient, the support needs to be given throughout the work term. So if that's 6 months, it needs to be throughout the entire stay, not just in the first few months that they're getting the support. Practical support can help ease the stress associated with relocation, as well as smooth the transition between traveling between countries. So the dual career issue is often cited as the primary issue for accompanying spouses. So most couples live in dual income households these days, and the accompanying spouse often fears losing their career and their income as a result of relocation. So approximately 60% of expatriate spouses had careers before relocation, whereas only 12 to 21%, depending on the study, are successfully employed after the relocation. So some barriers to spousal employment include language barriers, culture differences, their qualifications not carrying over, as Jordan mentioned earlier, visa restrictions, and also in the host country, the local employers tend to prefer local talent. They don't want foreign expatriate spouses in their businesses, and the expatriate spouse can face discrimination there. Spouses who are able to maintain employment after relocation are better able to adjust to the relocation. Organizations can assist spouses in acquiring employment through training, job searches, educational opportunities, and career counseling. And finally, there's social support. This type of support is focused on social integration. This type of support deals with sort of the everyday lives of the employees and their spouses. Some examples of social support include support groups for expatriates and their spouses, assistance integrating into local culture, networking opportunities, and other social opportunities for expatriates and their families to connect with each other. Social support is often overlooked by organizations because they feel that their employees' personal lives are none of their concern. But social integration is key in successful expatriation. So organizations need to be more involved in creating support networks and social settings for their expatriates and their families in order to ensure satisfaction of all parties involved. Next, I'll be handing it over to Irene to talk about some interventions.
Thank you. I'll be presenting on the different intervention techniques that can help in improving the quality of life of the trailing spouse as well as the expat. Like we have seen that there's been a lot of challenges that the expats and the trailing spouse faces. One of the intervention techniques that can be implemented is offering adequate financial support. So since one of the major reasons that most of the expats consider while moving or relocating to a different country for an international assignment would be the financial aspect. So the companies will need to provide enough adequate amount so that they can support the family and have a better quality of life. Another intervention technique would be the mental health support for expats as well as spouses. Since we know that moving to a different country would be really difficult for the spouse as well as the expat, they would have to face a lot of challenges as well. And this can in turn impact their work performance. So providing mental health support can help having a better employee performance as well as improve the overall quality of life for the expat as well as the spouse. Providing benefits, benefits such as healthcare insurance, dental insurance, vision insurance, etc., can help improving the quality of life, as they would not be having any access to any of the facilities. So providing such benefits can be helpful for them since it's an entirely different country and we do not have anybody who can support them. Another intervention technique would be flexible timings at workplace. So having a flexible timing or a flexible schedule to choose from at workplace would help them have extra time for them where they can engage in different activities or can deal with their personal matters. And this in turn would have help them for improving the quality of life. Another intervention technique that I would like to talk about is including fun activities. So the companies can organize fun activities such as having family get-togethers or family dinners. So do something like a movie night or a short trip. So these can help them to de-stress and be away from work and help them to improve the quality of life by de-stressing and not being in their work environment. So these are the few of the techniques, intervention techniques that can help in the improving the quality of life. Moving on to the next topic that will be presented by Jisha.
Thank you, Irene. So I'll be presenting on the approaches that the organizations can take in order to avoid issues that revolve around trailing spouses, especially in the case of foreign assignments for expatriate managers. So designing a relocation package is one of the important point in like taking approach for trailing spouses. So most individuals may go through major life disruptions when it comes to moving to a different country for an assignment, and this can actually potentially cause a negative effect on the employee's performance as well. Therefore, it is important to design a relocation package for the employee while keeping in mind that they have a trailing spouse with them. So an appropriate relocation plan would include factors such as the employee's marital status, financial background, cultural background, etc. This is done to understand whether they can easily adapt to a new environment or not, and to determine the level of support they would require to settle down in a new country. Also, spousal support is something that the organization can include in a relocation package for a higher level employee move. So, including spousal support in a relocation package can be beneficial to the spouses who have relocated for their partner's work requirements. And this can include assisting the spouse with job search or with starting a business of their own. A spousal association. So, when a company decides to relocate its employees to a foreign country, it is important to not only focus on the employee alone, but also on their partners or spouses or family as well. So, one of the reasons why relocation may not be successful or the employee may not be fully efficient when relocated could be because of their spouse or family not being able to adjust to an unfamiliar environment. So, trailing spouses because of this tend to pick up various issues such as depression, loneliness, etc. when relocated. So, spousal associations is a unique approach an organization can bring in to support the spouses in order to resolve various problems associated with relocating along with their partners for work purposes. So in this approach, supporting the spouses of the employees, the expat partners could actually come together collectively to share their problems and connect with each other. And this could help keep the spouses engaged and lessen their difficulties, and it'll help them make new connections in new place. Also, the company can assist the spouses by facilitating the spousal association where they provide language lessons, assist them in their job hunt, include cultural awareness, and help them network. So this can effectively improve the quality of life of a trailing spouse. Inclusive of all spouses. So traditionally, a trailing spouse is considered to be a female spouse accompanying her partner abroad for work reasons like Elle and Jordan mentioned earlier. However, times have changed and there has been a significant rise of male trailing spouses. So it is important to keep in mind to avoid any stereotypes associated with trailing spouses. So any programs or packages being designed for the spouses of the expat employees should remain gender neutral. It has been found that male trailing spouses often receive less support in this role than their female counterparts. So the reversal of traditional gender roles can be unsettling for those who are unprepared and without access to certain support and resources, normally reserved for female partners. Men may find themselves tackling these changes on their own, and because of which the organization should be mindful of being inclusive of all genders while taking an approach on assisting trailing spouses. So next up, Irene will be concluding.
So since we had seen that monetary support is one of the major factors that most of the individuals consider when moving to a different location for an international assignment. Although one thing that needs to be considered is the other aspects, such as the psychological aspects. A lot of times that has not been considered or is being ignored. And also various companies offer support for the welfare of the employees. So at the same time, another thing that they have to consider equally is the other related factors, such as the impact that it would have on the lives of the trailing spouse. Thank you.